Hey guys, come on in. I'm just finishing up my live with the Brian Koberger, and I wanted to go ahead and start the live on the the D4VD. Um, so come on in, tell me where you are from. You tell me what city, what state, what country, and if you haven't subscribed, it's free. Please share, leave a comment, and know that everything I'm sharing is my opinion. This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. So I don't have a lot of updates on this case, but I want to give you what I do have on this case. So the general manager and partner at Mogul Vision, who is Josh Marshall, Robert Morgan Roth Jr. is now that is David's on the road day-to-day tour manager. And recently I was sent some photos from an individual who stated that they're part of a group called RIA. Now there are several other photos of Celeste sitting with what appears to be David's mom and sister in a crowd at a concert. So it's important to note that these could have been from a completely different day, but this concert was in the Fonda Theater, and David had concerts there for 3 days. So I'm not clear on exactly when this was, but it is proof that David's team, more proof, in addition to the emails, that David's team would have known about Celeste. And possibly his family also knew about Celeste. So to bring back up Josh Marshall, we know that he allegedly received an email about a Celeste being missing. And we've seen the screenshot of that. I showed that to you during the last live stream that we did together. And Josh Marshall claims that he never received it and that he was not around David, that he works mainly from his house. But two things can be true at the same time. Um, so Josh, could have been there taking the group photos. Um, but it could also be true that he wasn't aware of exactly who Celeste was, um, you know, and what she knew. But let's talk about um, also this other article that came out in the case. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna. This is my sourcing on this is says that in the arrest of the Celeste Rivas, that that it's reportedly nowhere imminent. So no arrest is imminent in Celeste. This is according to TMZ. Now, Harvey Levin said that he spoke about a recent discussion he had had with the LAPD about the case in a video that he published yesterday. And he explained that investigators don't appear to be certain about the manner of how Celeste died. Now, obviously, she didn't put herself in the trunk, so I think it's somewhat ridiculous that he's saying that he can't, that the LAPD isn't able to make it, but they are also legally allowed to lie to us, so that could also be the case as well. But Harvey Levin shared that the LAPD are, quote, not close to making an arrest. He said, quote, we are told it is nowhere imminent that arrests will be made. That doesn't mean there won't be one, though, you guys, but there is a chance that there won't be one, in the sense that we don't know if this was somebody did away with Celeste or not. So he said, this is TMZ, pushed back to find out why they couldn't get an answer on whether the ME had, if the toxicology findings were back in, and if the ME had weighed in on that. And it said, quote, it would seem to me, this is according to Harvey Levin, that in LA, even though it could take months for toxicology to come back in, given the nature of this case, we are now talking mid-November. And remember, Steve Fischer from SF Investigates told us that he had seen cases where, it was not determined, that were just a few days or even a week ahead of earlier than Celeste's case, were now getting results back in. So he said, we are, quote, now talking mid-November. They must have results by now. He continued. From there, he explained that there's still a remote possibility that Celeste did OD, and that somebody, did something to her afterward. He described it as, you know, making her in pieces. I'm watching my words, but that it wouldn't classify as a red rum. I'm not really clear on why it wouldn't classify as that, but he then reiterated, quote, "We push and we cannot get an answer, that they are close to making an arrest and that they have a suspect. All we are told is that it is, quote, not imminent. So we are 2.5 months in here. They must have the toxicology report by now." So I do think it's, really frustrating, and I understand, why you guys would be frustrated about this. I wish I had more answers for you on this, because I do think that you guys deserve credibly sourced information. You guys deserve answers. Let me pull this up really quick. And I wish I had more for you on this, but I don't want to just. I think that by continuing um, to make noise about the case and to continue to raise red flags, does help Celeste. I think we are advocating for her. So thank you for joining me for that. Let's continue on together. So according to the LAPD, they're continuing to investigate what happened to Celeste, and a case that I think has multiple ties, in my opinion, to musician D4VD, aka David Burke. Now, on September 8th is when Celeste was found in the front trunk of his Tesla. Obviously, she didn't get in there on her own, wrap herself up in plastic in multiple pieces, which is what we've been told. So how did she end up in multiple pieces in the front trunk of his Tesla? And why is there not an arrest imminent, at least for that crime? So TMZ, this Harvey Levin, reiterated that in speaking with the LAPD that he didn't believe that an arrest, they was told that an arrest was, quote, not close. He said they are not close to making an arrest. We are told it is nowhere imminent that an arrest will be made. That doesn't mean there won't be one, but there's a chance that there won't be one, in the sense that we don't even know if there was a homicide. We pushed back today to find out and could not get an answer on whether the ME had weighed in and whether the tox findings are in. So they couldn't even get an answer from the LAPD of whether or not they got the tox screen back. I do think it's somewhat of a good sign that they have not just said we're not arresting anybody. So they may just have a lot more information. We know there were other people living at the home with David. We now know, and we also know that there's a second location at the Doheny location. Now, Harvey Levin conceded that in Los Angeles, it can take several months for toxicology to come back in. And Celeste, we don't know how many weeks she was in the trunk, but he believes that because of the high profile nature of the case, that Harvey Levin thinks that they, quote, must have the results by now, end quote. He also added that hypothetically, if Celeste were to have passed of a medication overdose, and they did find bottles of pills around the house, which is probably why people are speculating this. And Steve Fischer from SF Investigates also shared that he had thought that in some of the images that he had seen of Celeste, he thought she might have been under the influence. But a crime still would have been committed by somebody, putting her in pieces into the front trunk of the Tesla. So he said, quote, "We pushed and we cannot get an answer that they are close to making an arrest and that they have a suspect." Now, remember, the LAPD is legally allowed to lie to us. They certainly don't have to give their information away. But he said, we're 2.5 months in here. They must have a toxicology report by now. And he wrapped things up by saying that even if police have a video of the person putting Celeste into the Tesla, we know that they do because Steve Fischer has said that he has seen it. It doesn't mean that that individual is responsible for what happened to Celeste. So let me go to Steve Fischer for a second and just see if he has an update for us. And let me take this down and add this in. Okay. So let's go to Steve Fischer next and just see if he has any updates from today. I'm going to start with this one, and then we'll go to the other one. So on the night of December 30th, through the morning of December 31st of 2024, David and Celeste were together in downtown LA, where several photos were taken in public. Celeste was 14 years old at the time, about 70 miles from her home in Lake Elsinore, where she was sober that night. Whether she was sober that night is open to interpretation. So I think this is why people are wondering if this, if the law enforcement has to rule this in or rule this out. He said there is photographic evidence of them together on January 2nd of 2025. Now, my understanding is that this was the last proof of life that we have that Celeste was alive, is January 2nd of 2025, unless some new photographs surface. And then he continues on. He said, but then on January 8th, a sizable crew was filming a music video with David out of state. So, and by January 11th, David is in his hometown of Texas. On January 20th, he's on a Delta flight. Okay, so David wasn't even in LA after January the 8th. They filmed this music video out of state. And then he went home to Texas January 11th. And then he was on a Delta flight on January 20th. So the question is, where was Celeste between January 3rd and January 20th of 2025? Can anyone account for her during this time? Were there many people present at the music video shoot? Did anyone see her there? What about his hometown? So was she traveling with him? Does anyone have proof of life for Celeste Rivas Hernandez after January 2nd of 2025? And he shared this image of Celeste. And then this is really disturbing. This, this is a knife. This is you can see this is the music video that they're shooting. And then this is the shed. So I do think that is very telling. I don't know what this cooked and they're done is, but I want to go through this one together. So he said he's answering this, saying, yes, the FBI is definitely involved in that case. Thank you, Steve. I'm talking about the D4VD. Why is the FBI involved? Why haven't they made a public statement confirming they're taking the case? Phoenix Rising says, I could be wrong, but I took it to mean if there's evidence, reason to believe that Celeste had been transported across state lines. In that case, the FBI would be involved. Your words being misinterpreted to allege you're saying of their active involvement. Now, Steve said, the comment I made was in response to a hypothetical question to which I answered, yes, the FBI is definitely involved in that case, assuming the hypothetical scenario that the case involved crossing state lines with a minor, but I have not seen any evidence of crossing state lines. I just want to clear that up. So unfortunately, the FBI is not involved, according to Steve Fischer, in this case. So I just wanted to clear that up too, because I know there have been some questions about that as well. And just try to clear up some of the nonsense and try to get us into a position where we're actually talking about things. Now, I want to talk about this. Neo, he and David both scrubbed their social media around the same time. And I do think that is significant. And I just want to say thank you to NJAS for gifting a reporter membership. Oh, 5 reporter memberships. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, NJAS. That is so kind of you. One is kind too. So 5 is really nice. If you got one of those, please make sure you let NJAS know. And please say thank you to her. We're going to go through this together, but I do think that it is very telling. Now, according to Steve Fischer, he thought that David's original plan went awry, and that David's 2023 Tesla was supposed to be a temporary place to store Celeste. He did not think that was, he thought that was like part of a plan, and that was maybe part A of the plan. And then we get into the mysterious addition of the air freshener, right? Remember that Christmas tree air freshener was added after, according to Steve Fischer, the car was parked. So who went back and added it? So was the air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror when the car was being driven from the mansion to the spot on Bluebird where it was ticketed multiple times, where neighbors phoned in complaints that led to a company towing the car to an impound lot? And once the car was at the impound lot, employees noticed a smell and called police. Now, Steve believes that the window was rolled down on the Tesla, and that the drive from David's house to around the corner to air out the car. So he, obviously that would have given him a better look, at as what was inside, who was driving the car. And Steve does know who's driving the car. He hasn't told us yet, but he says he does know who's behind the wheel. And he repeatedly said they and their, so plural. And I've heard rumors that there was an SUV following the Tesla down the street. I don't know if it's true or not, but it does sound like the Christmas tree air freshener was added at some point to try to mask a potential odor, or maybe there was an odor inside the car and it just hadn't gotten strong enough. Now, a lot of people have wondered if if Celeste was in a freezer from January 3rd of 2025 until, when she was found in the car, in the front trunk of the car. I don't know. But so we don't know how long Celeste was in the trunk. We just have only heard plural weeks. So it is very hard to believe that this was an accident, in my opinion, because normally if someone you care about has something awful happen to them accidentally, you call 911. You call 911 and you get help. And you help other people, even if you might get in trouble because maybe you supplied the substances, you still call 911 and you help other people. We help other people because that's the right thing to do. And most people would beg first responders or paramedics to get help for a loved one, even if there was no help. So this whole thing of this just might be an accident, in my opinion, is nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. And you're right, PH Gold V, SF always says there. So if you think this is foul play, put a 1 in the chat. If you think this wasn't foul play, that it was an accident, put a 2 in the chat. But at this point, we don't know who was driving the Tesla, and Steve Fischer has not told us. He just hints that it was, someone, and that the car was coming from the direction of the mansion. So it's, again, tough to believe that David didn't happen to notice that a $100,000 black Tesla was parked 2 streets over for a period of time, that his Tesla wasn't in his own driveway. Remember, this car wasn't sold. This car wasn't reported stolen. My understanding is it was still in his name. So in my opinion, there are crimes here. And we know that somebody did away with Celeste, either by putting her in the trunk after she was, done away with, or if it was an accident, they certainly, to me, this would be manslaughter in my case, in my opinion, if they didn't call 911. But I don't think this was an accident because, again, a good and decent person would have called 911. A good and decent person would have extended kindness and compassion and empathy, made a statement instead of just continuing to tour on his concert tour. Maybe would have had a word of condolence from the family, unless you had something to hide. Tara says, I don't know how there wasn't a smell. Yeah. So 1, 2, 1, 1. I'm just doing the poll real quick. Somebody said, thanks for the membership, and Jazz. Janine said, the California needs to hire some more toxicologists. And just as 1, because I think somebody gave her unauthorized medication. We do know there were pill bottles laying around the house. That's why people are suspicious. Now, they were prescription pill bottles. Did they check for blood? Well, we don't know what condition they were. My understanding is they were going in through the vitreous humor, you guys. Kelly put a 1. Please watch what words you guys use. And I want to welcome Kimmy as a brand new Reporter Room membership. Welcome to the meet today. All right. So let's, David didn't renew the tags for his Tesla. It had multiple unpaid parking tickets, according to Steve Fischer. The Tesla was never reported stolen. And this car is loaded with technology. It has cameras all over it. So the idea that David wouldn't have known where his Tesla was, in my opinion, is absolutely ridiculous. I always see 1 or 2 people going after Celeste's parents for not doing more. We don't know what happened, so I'm just urging caution. I understand there's a lot of feelings about it, but I've not been able to find any evidence of any wrongdoing on their part. Maybe they could have reported it more to law enforcement, but I'm urging caution. They've already lost their daughter. I just don't want to pile on the family until we know what happened. I do know this. She wasn't found in the trunk of their car. It was Njaz McDale. It was Njaz gift to do that. So let's continue on. So in my opinion, does the LAPD know who drove the Tesla to the spot where it was impounded from and on Bluebird and what date? Yes, in my opinion, they do know who drove it because Steve Fischer says he knows who drove it. And we know from Steve Fischer that he gave them the information. So are we going to find out that it was David or was it somebody in his entourage driving the Tesla? And did they know that Celeste was in the front trunk of that car? But I think it's ridiculous to think that David was supposed to be friends with Celeste, but wouldn't even express condolences for her loss, except that maybe he was getting advice from a lawyer. And if so, why? So to believe that David had nothing to do with this, nothing at all, we would have to believe that David didn't notice that his $100,000 Tesla was gone. So to believe David had nothing to do with this, we have to believe that David didn't care when his friend passed away, that Celeste, who he was, was seen with on live streams and multiple photographs, that he didn't care enough to say one word of condolence about Celeste. So, I could be wrong. We could find out that it's possibly somebody in David's entourage. I don't know if I see somebody in his entourage wanting to go to jail for the rest of their life. So this is what I think. This is what I think the LAPD needs to do. They have to prove their case to a jury. And the DA is saying he hasn't seen it. I don't really believe that either. I think the DA absolutely would be all over this case. But will a jury believe that David didn't notice his computerized checked advanced technology $100,000 Tesla was parked around the corner from his mansion? This is the same guy who had security guards wearing masks and glasses so we couldn't see who they were, and videotaping the movers as they were moving David's stuff out of the mansion. But we're supposed to believe that David didn't notice his $100,000 Tesla was just missing. So the LAPD is going to need to be able to prove that there was a homicide case to a jury to get the DA to bite on this case. And legal expert Brian Packett shared that the footage could prove pivotal depending on what was known about Celeste's movements and state of mind prior to her disappearance. He said, quote, if it helps establish a timeline or shows who she was last seen with, prosecutors and defense attorneys alike will rely on it to test theories about Celeste's final hours. So what do police need to make their case? Well, they would need the security footage, which my understanding is they did obtain this from David's Hollywood home. We also know that there is a second location on Doheny. Now, possibly this could be the delay. The second location on Doheny, they would have to prove that maybe, rule that in or rule that out as a potential crime scene. But we do know that they were there on the, let me grab this really quick, on the Doheny property. Let's see. And this is the Doheny property that I'm talking about. This is the, what may be a potential second crime scene. And, the proof that they're in the house is that I've showed you guys. I'll just show it real quick for those of you that don't know, is if you look at the back tile at the Doheny property, let me take this down for a second. I'll put it back up in a minute. And you look at the shades, the window shades, and look at the blue tile, and then look at the stainless steel, and then also pay attention to the beadboard on the inside of the cabinet. And then we go to this shot of David and Celeste on that live stream where he told them to delete everything. If you look to the left of David's hair, you can see the blue tile. You can also see the blue tile a little bit between David and Celeste. Behind David and Celeste's heads, you can see the rollers with the shades. And then if you look up to your left, you can see the beadboard white cabinets. And then you can also see the hood for the stainless steel appliances. Let me move myself out of the way here for a second. And you can also see the stainless steel stove. So that, in my opinion, is what they're going to have to, there may be a delay for something that's, not because they can't make their case, but because they have a second crime scene happening here. And this is the other proof that they were at this Doheny property. If you look at this bathroom with the 1, 2, 3 pictures that make up the ocean scene with the 2 hangers hanging on it. And then you go here, you can see again behind David and Celeste is that ocean scene picture with not 1, but 2, but 3 different pictures of David and Celeste together. And as always, she's covering her face, which to me does point to the fact that he knew that that he was trying to hide her, in my opinion. So I just wanted to show you guys that. And then clearly Celeste did not put herself in the front trunk of David's Tesla. She didn't wrap herself up in plastic bags, in black plastic. So I think it's safe to assume, in my opinion, that there is and was some foul play involved. And even if someone tried to claim that it was an accident, I think it's still going to be very difficult for that person to explain how Celeste ended up in the front trunk of a $100,000 Tesla registered to David, and how the Tesla just happened to be parked around the corner from David's mansion rather than in David's driveway, and the fact that David never reported his $100,000 Tesla as being stolen. He never reported his 100,000 Tesla as being missing, and the fact that it sounds like Steve Fischer and the LAPD both know who was behind the wheel of the Tesla, driving it from the mansion around the corner to Bluebird Avenue, where the Tesla was ultimately picked up by the tow truck and taken to an impound lot. They know, authorities know who was behind the wheel of the Tesla. And so for people who think you can't make a case without a body, I've talked about the Scott Peterson case, that they had to make that case. And there are other cases too, where, they've, like when, in this case with Harmony Montgomery, where they, didn't have Harmony, and we still don't know what happened to Harmony, but they were still able to bring a case and make a case against Adam Montgomery. So let's talk about the David and Celeste allegations. According to the New York Post, David and Celeste joked about the singer doing, media training for her, but she talked about, and she used the R word, essaying kids. So I do think that, he said, I thought I media trained you. And then he told his mods to delete everything. Now, at the time of this happened, this Twitch stream, which was September 18th of 2024, that was just 11 days after Celeste turned 14. So David was 20 and Celeste was 14 during this Twitch stream. And that might have been, something. So in an updated Twitch clip, the romantic homicide singer was wearing the I Heart Hot Moms t-shirt, and he flirted with Celeste while the two were sitting in the kitchen. And that's this right here, this live stream. Let me back it up. This live stream right here, where, and so he says, this is what David said, quote, I media trained you. That's controversial. And he placed his hand on her shoulder. As controversial as you essaying kids, the Celeste says back to him, wearing that black hooded sweatshirt and oversized glasses. And then she starts laughing. And of course, she used the R word here, not SA. And she covers her own mouth, apparently shocking herself with the comment, while David moves to mute the live stream before ending it altogether with a command to his fans and mods saying, delete everything, delete everything. He tells the Twitch chat as Celeste purses her lips, and the pair laugh and say, okay, bye. And then the live stream is shut down. But not before chat participants made a slew of comments, about this, essay joke. And, they asked, is David on the Epstein flight list? So they were asking if David was flying on Epstein's Lolita Express. David and Celeste Island trip, another one wrote, and I believe that this was referring to Epstein's Island, in my opinion. And then another one commented, oh no, quote, canceled, and quote, end stream. So the Los Angeles District Attorney, Nathan Hochman, also spoke out in a brief exchange. And the last time we heard about him publicly was October the 15th. Now, Nathan Hochman was asked for an update on the case, and he said, quote, it's currently under investigation. Asked specifically about D4VD and other potential suspects, Nathan Hochman reiterated the ongoing nature of the investigation and confirmed that the police had not presented the case to his team. Now, I'm not buying that. I believe the police may not have formally presented the case, but clearly the DA is following the case. Clearly, this high profile case, he would be, aware of. I'm not believing that the DA wouldn't know about this case. And he said, quote, we don't discuss suspects or points in a continuing investigation. When and if that case is presented to the DA's office, we make a decision on it. I'll make sure you're the first ones to know. Now, we have not heard from the DA's office that we're not filing charges. So I think sometimes what somebody doesn't say is just as important as what someone does say. So maybe what the delay could be is, it could be the fact that there is that second alleged potential second crime scene at Doheny. So we also know that there was this 911 call just 2 months before Celeste was found inside the trunk. Now, this was obtained by the U.S. Sun through a FOIA request, which is the Freedom of Information request. And it showed that a neighbor did call 911 on Sunday, July 20th of 2025. And I don't know if this call is significant or not. It was made around 4:38 regarding a, quote, public nuisance complaint, but the police didn't arrive at the home until hours later. They arrived at nearly around 9 a.m. So they said it was just loud music playing. So there was no 911 calls, though, made from the mansion from February 24th, when David moved in, until September of 2025, when his manager broke the lease and David moved out of the house. So I do think that's significant as well. But some people believe it's because Celeste was, stashed at the other house on Doheny. So I guess my question was there any 911 calls made to the Doheny house? I do think it's interesting that David stood out there with had security guards filming the movers. One security guard was wearing a Kevlar vest, a badge, a mask, and glasses. And, I wondered who was behind the video camera watching the movers moving David's belongings. Who were they filming it for? I believe it was probably for David. And we know that David left the things behind at the crime scene. So the age of consent in California is 18 years old. And so we also know that David's former neighbor claimed in a chat with the U.S. Sun that he saw David and Celeste, quote, all the time, and believed they lived together at the mansion. So there were eyewitnesses to Celeste being at the house. David didn't have legal custody of Celeste. He didn't have the right to keep a runaway at his mansion. He didn't have the right to prevent Celeste from going to school. And so hopefully the neighbor has reported this to LAPD, or LAPD has followed up with this. But I just think that in this case, we may have a delay simply because there are a lot of moving parts to this case. Obviously, I can't say for sure. I'm just telling you what I know and what I don't know. Uh, so, legal expert Brian Packett also said that prosecutors can bring charges if there's sufficient circumstantial or forensic evidence that connects a suspect to the crime. So while a confirmed COD strengthens a case if they were to bring homicide charges, it's not an absolute requirement, especially when other physical or digital evidence indicates foul play. So this is according to legal expert Brian Hackett. So I think that's significant as well. But I do think that, the neighbor says he saw Celeste there all the time. He said, quote, he was with the girl regularly, recognizing Celeste from photographs. He said, quote, I'd be in my car and we'd acknowledge each other, say hi, and that was about it when they were heading to the store or whatever. So here we have an eyewitness that does put Celeste at the mansion. He said, I did ask him about the Tesla as his car was hit and he never fixed it. So he's talking about David here. He said he didn't really say what happened. And so it brings us back to the hit and run that you guys were asking about in July that ended up in a fatality for a man on a bicycle because the Tesla had a dent in the back of it. So Celeste was with, according to this eyewitness neighbor, Celeste was with David. He identified her to police. And the neighbor added, quote, anytime I tried to talk to them, so he's talking about Celeste and David, they weren't very engaging. They kept to themselves. Friends told me they found a girl in a car, and I didn't realize it was her at first. So we know that there were multiple surveillance cameras outside of the home. We know that there was a ring camera that had been smashed on the ground. The mansion owner claimed that police took footage of the cameras, but that they were not, that he doesn't know if they were turned on or not. He gave access to Josh, the manager, but he doesn't know. But I find it highly unlikely that a pop star would be living in a mansion and not have his security cameras turned on. And so let's talk about the security that the Tesla would have had, because I think that's I think that's significant. So let me take this down for a second. Grab this. Okay, so this is the Model Y. And I don't know if he had the standard, premium, or performance. But I do want to go through the security cameras. So front-facing cameras, that would have had front-facing cameras. It would have had blind spot on it. It would have needed to be charged at some point. Let me grab this. So how many Tesla's cameras would this car have had? Let's go through that together. Okay, so let me make sure we're all looking at the same thing. Yeah. All right. So this car would have had, it was, this was a very advanced technology car. That's what it's known for. So it would have had safety and security features available. And it would have been slightly different, but it would have, one, had a security alarm. Your alarm will sound and external lights will flash if a locked trunk or a door is open without a valid entry key. So the idea that somebody could have snuck up and put Celeste in there and David wouldn't have known is ridiculous in my opinion. To enable the security alarm on your touchscreen, so you can access it from a touch screen. A pin to drive allows you to set security. You can get a 4-digit verification that must be entered before your vehicle is driven. To activate the pin to your vehicle touchscreen, tap controls, safety and security, pin to drive, and you will be prompted to enter or create a 4-digit pin that you can then use. They also have what's called Sentry Mode on this vehicle. Now, Sentry Mode is a feature that allows you to monitor activities around your Tesla when it's parked and locked. And this is why I just think it's, this may be another level that law enforcement has to go into. They may be waiting on warrants from Tesla. If a threat is detected, the camera on your vehicle will begin recording. The alarm will activate. If the alarm is activated, you will receive an alert from the Tesla app notifying you that an incident has occurred. So again, the idea that David didn't know that his car was parked around the corner on Bluebird Avenue is very hard to believe. Very, very hard to believe. I can't say with 100% certainty, but it's hard to believe that he wouldn't have known. You can also do a manual enter. There's intrusion sensors. So our security system and Sentry Mode come standard with every new Tesla vehicle. These systems can detect and alert you of suspicious activity around your vehicle. For layers of protection, all new Tesla vehicles come with intrusion sensing hardware. For some vehicle trims, these systems will be activated with future over-the-air updates. So let's talk about the camera. There's a cabin camera. Is the Tesla able to see my vehicle using cabin camera? No, cabin camera features are processed directly on the vehicle itself. Image and video data from the cabin camera only leave your vehicle if data sharing is enabled and safety features occur. So David would have been able to see his camera in the cabin, but Tesla wouldn't necessarily be able to have access to that. So were they disabled? And if so, when and by who? Will the camera feature still work if someone else is driving? Yes, cabin camera does not perform facial recognition on or any other method of identifying or verifying the identity. Is cabin camera capable of capturing images of passengers? Yes, the entire cabin is captured. It is the driver's responsibility to inform passengers that a cabin camera data sharing is turned on. So they have that. So the idea that David wouldn't have known that his $100,000 Tesla was, around the corner with all of its technology and all of its security features is just very, very hard to believe. And I think, this may be part of why we have a pause here. I don't know for sure. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the reason that we have a pause is because they are trying to figure it out. They need to find out what do they have on this? Let me see where I am. So I want to talk about some of the things that I think that could be charges could be brought. In California, it's illegal for a 20-year-old to have any type of SA relationship with a 13 or a 14-year-old because the legal age of consent in California is 18. And so any type of activity that is SA in nature between someone who's 18 and over and a minor under 18 can be prosecuted in California, even if the minor willingly participates because they're not of age to consent. So if the minor is 14 years old and David is 20 years old, that's a 6-year gap. So more than 3 years or older, This can be charged as either a misdemeanor or a felony, but because there's a 6-year gap here in between their ages, I think it would be more. And because she was found in the front trunk of the Tesla, I would think that this would be charged as a felony. So they would have to get somebody to cooperate to show that he had some type of SA type of relationship with Celeste. They would need some type of evidence of that to be able to prosecute that. But it's a felony conviction that can result in up to 3 years in jail. If there are no laws that protect a 20-year-old and give a 20-year-old permission to have a missing child live with them. So it's considered harboring a missing child, harboring a minor, and the charges can vary. The specific charge and penalty can depend on the state and the details of the individual situation. So harboring a runaway is considered providing shelter to a minor for more than a specific time period. So 24 to 48 hours without notifying police is against the law in most states, including California. It's considered custodial interference. If a child is intentionally taken or kept from their lawful guardian, it is often prosecuted as a felony. It can also be considered kidnapping when a child is taken without parents' consent. And in this case, Celeste was running away. I don't believe the parents consented to this, but the adult could face federal kidnapping charges. Thank you so much, Njaz, so much for the 20 pounds super sticker. Thank you so. Njaz says, thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your hard work. For those of you that don't know, Njaz is one of our head mods, along with Michael. So thank you so much to all of our mods. K Bling is modding. Who else is modding? Let me know so I can shout you out. Drop me a comment right now so I can shout you out if you're modding today. K Bling says, mine have been too. They are homegrown, such an attachment. And Antonio says, I wouldn't trade her for all the world. I'd rather keep her and get rid of one of my brothers. Oh. All right, so let's continue on. I want to talk about delinquency of a minor. So what does that cover? This covers a wide range of actions. And again, this is another charge that I think, could be brought. Now, maybe they are just waiting because they don't know what they're going to charge yet, but I think this could be brought. This covers a wide range of actions, including encouraging a child to run away, encouraging a child to engage in illegal behavior. So I would think that this would be not going to school would be contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Not if she got a hold of any type of alcohol when they were out with their friends. Remember her friends, David's friends said that they saw Celeste with him, but they thought she was a university student, right? So was she being served alcohol? Did somebody get her an illegal ID? That would be contributing to the delinquency of a minor, in my opinion. So the court could interpret encouraging a child to run away, and this could be a very serious charge. So kidnapping is also something that they could consider. So while it's less common for simple runaway situations, a kidnapping charge could be filed depending on the specifics of the case, especially if the adult took the child across state lines or used force. And so if that is Celeste, if she was really in that video with his parents across state lines, then a kidnapping charge could also be added to the list of charges. The next one is endangering the welfare of a child. This is also considered contributing to the delinquency of a minor. A state may consider an adult's encouragement of a child to run away and face the dangers of being homeless to be child endangerment. Remember, TMZ told us that when they had the video of Celeste, they could see a car, a black car waiting in the distance for her when they had her on video running away. Now, the other things that would, the courts are going to consider is Celeste's age. The legal consequences are going to be more severe the younger the child is and the less able they are to care for themselves. So they're also going to be considering what the adult's intent was. They're going to want to know what was the motivation behind D4VD, if he did indeed allegedly, in my opinion, encourage Celeste. Was he send someone to pick her up? Remember, she ran away. One of the last times that we knew about was Valentine's Day in 2024. So encouraging the child to run away is viewed differently if it's, to escape, terrible living situation for the child. But we found no evidence of this. And that would be viewed very differently than encouraging a child to run away for an illicit purpose, such as SA. And in this case, I believe that it was an illicit purpose. But again, law enforcement has to prove this. The other thing is the child's safety. Is the child harmed while being a runaway? In this case, yes, Celeste was harmed. She was found in the front trunk of David's Tesla. So in this case, the adult who encouraged Celeste to run away, if this can be proved, could then face more serious charges than, say, an adult where the child was fine and healthy and nothing bad happened to the child. So let's talk about the California's penal code on child abduction. This can be what's considered a wobbler offense, which means it could be either a misdemeanor or a felony. Now, a misdemeanor is up to 1 year in jail, whereas a felony is up to 4 years in prison. So how do we weigh this penal code? This law applies when an adult has no right of custody. And in this case, David did not have custody of Celeste, and he allegedly enticed her away from her legal guardian. I say allegedly because, in my opinion, allegedly. So the definition is willfully and maliciously taking them, or willfully and maliciously enticing them, willfully and maliciously keeping them, willfully and maliciously withholding them, or willfully and maliciously concealing a child from their legal guardian. So I believe that this can each count of this can be up to 4 years in prison. And so I do believe that she was enticed away from her family, in my opinion, for malicious purposes. It wasn't to protect her from her family. I have seen no evidence of that. In my opinion, it was for illicit purposes. Now, the severity and the penalties increase dramatically if the enticement of the child away from her legal guardian was for SA purposes. In this case, the adult could face prosecution for other serious crimes. So if there was an SA intent, if the enticement was intended to commit acts, inappropriate, illegal acts, lewd acts, or other felonies, this suspect could be charged under Penal Code 288.3, which is contacting a minor with an intent to commit a felony. And this is where that live stream of Celeste, talking about David R-ing a child, I think is significant, in my opinion. There's also another penal code, 2884, which is arranging a meeting with a minor for lewd purposes. So the sentencing for enticing a child away from their parents is much stronger if an SA intent can be proved. And in this case, it's not up to 4 years, it's up to 8 years in state prison. And the conviction under this statute also requires a lifetime registration as an SO. So the person who enticed Celeste for SA purposes, if this is charged, nobody's been charged yet, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but this would require a lifetime as a registered SO. Now, kidnapping, this would be where force or fraud was used. The charge could be escalated to kidnapping. And again, I think that would be harder to prove. But it is worth noting that kidnapping a child under 14 carries enhanced penalties, including up to 11 years in state prison. So I do think that that is also very significant. And this may be why I'm hoping, I don't know for sure, but I'm hoping that this is why we have a pause here, that we have a pause because they're trying to figure out what to charge. And not because they're not bringing any charges at all. I do want to say thank you to our executive producer, Njaz, and also to our producers, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael L. Cole, Christy Valentine, and Randall Rand. And thank you to our channel members too. We're not done. We're going to do a Q&A. We're going to go through questions. If you're watching, come on up and talk to me. We are going to do a Q&A together. We're not finished, but so I'm going to go through some of your questions. Just watch your words so I can show your question on the screen, and then we're going to talk about it. But I hope that I'm just trying to figure out in my my heart of hearts, why we have this delay. So I can't say for sure, but they may be trying to figure out not what charge, but charges. I don't think, in my opinion, I hope that this simply isn't a case where they just decide that, well, she was found in the trunk. That's all we're going to charge her with. I hope it's going to be more than that. And I obviously believe that that would be the right thing to do. And I also want to do super thanks and coffee gratitude to Njaz, Michael L. Cole, and Maya Sane World from our last live stream the other day, and also gifted channel memberships to Njaz and Njaz. Thank you, all of you guys, so much. All right, let's go through what you guys have to say. So what say you? That's what I think. That's why I think there's a delay. That's what I'm hoping. And I think that by continuing to, keep hitting this and keep raising awareness for Celeste, I think that this, helps keep the pressure on. That 70s chick says, you must think everyone is not very smart if they would ignore and not realize all the things that are evident in this case. I think my audience is very, very smart. I think we have, I don't know about that, but oh, he, not you. Okay. I was like, oh, I wasn't sure. Okay, so let's reread that comment. He must think everyone is not very smart if they would ignore and not realize all of the things that are evident in the case. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping too. Yeah, I don't know the nature of the relationship between David and Neo. My understanding is Neo was his personal assistant and friend, and that's all I know. Thank you, PhD. I want to see what you guys think. And hi, Antonia. And Jess says there's no proof that David was in a relationship with Neo. Yeah, we don't have any proof of that. The only thing we know about Neo is that he scrubbed his social media account around the same time as David. Now, David was his boss, so maybe his boss told him to. That he was working with David as his personal assistant, and that he was David's friend. So did he vanish? I don't know. I've heard rumors, but these are only rumors, that Neo left the country. I don't know if this is true or not true. It could also be that he took a job for somebody out of, I hope he's, cooperating. Celeste admitted to that on the live. That's just my opinion. Yeah, you're entitled to your opinion. If you want to put justice for Celeste and purple hearts up for Celeste, thank you, Njaz and Michael. That would be so nice. Kay Blink said David thought he could control Celeste. In my opinion, she proved him wrong. That 70s chick said he isn't star material. In my opinion, never was, never will be, just a wannabe. Well, he's done now. He's done now, because I don't think anybody will want to work with him. And Michael's asking for the mods not to time anybody out. Yeah, you're allowed to. We are allowed. Everybody here is allowed to have their own opinion. This is a critical thinkers channel. We have some of the smartest people here on YouTube, so everybody is entitled to their own opinion as long as it's expressed, in a nice way. Without, if somebody's attacking somebody else in the chat, obviously that would be, or being disruptive. Kay said, unfortunately, Celeste thought he was a star. I think she did too. His music stinks. Michael thinks, I don't think we were probably his target audience. I do think, in looking at how he's dressed in a lot of his stuff, I think that his target audience was probably kids. And we talked about this on another live stream. If you look underneath this painting, underneath him painting these T-shirts that he sold, these bloody shirts that he was selling, you could see the black plastic. So I'm wondering if this, could be linked back to him in that way. It does. It is. It's very frustrating. I understand why you guys are frustrated. Then the FBI can get involved only if they can prove that there was that somebody crossed state lines. You can send me a tip at tipsforjessica@outlook.com. My name is Jessica, for those of you that don't know. Antonia said, I've never heard of David until this case. I wasn't familiar with him either, although I don't think I was probably his target audience. I do think most of his audience was kids. I mean, and that's just evidenced by what he was wearing, right? I mean, he was wearing clothing, in my opinion, that was meant to attract young girls, right? Hello Kitty type clothing. I do think this is somewhat significant. I know people have said that the song is I Chased a Crow, but look at the date that he posted this on. He posted this on Celeste's birthday, and I've told you guys what I think about the significance of a crow and why I think that's significant. So I do think that's significant. But I do think that this t-shirt, this shirt. Now, somebody did say they found that the shirt, they did find somebody who was selling it, the Divine Celestial, but I do think it's interesting that he was wearing that in light of, Celeste's name. Thank you for your purple heart. Mystic Magic says, it seems odd that his brother was letting Celeste backstage and that his brother was with Celeste look-alike at the Maryland concert. Antonia thinks his goose is cooked. That 70 says Discord is part of relating to minors. Yeah. Discord has a lot of problems. Rose R says his legs have large scratches on them in those posts. Mr. Hello Kitty. Yeah. I don't think we were his target audience. I'll just say that. I think he was targeting kids, which makes the fact that, some of his misogynistic posts even more troubling. Angela said, I'm wondering if they actually looked in his studio in the desert. His song says something about it. And Nanny says, thank you for bringing us updates on this. I believe that David and his friends did something to Celeste. I pray that Celeste finds her justice with some of the pictures that have been posted. PDF. Yep. PDF file. What misogynistic post? I covered it on a different live stream, but he posted some really disturbing stuff, chopping up meat, just with jealousy and just some misogynistic posts and reposts that he made. I went through that on a different live stream, so I won't rehash it here. But I do think that, I don't think David liked women, in my opinion. And I think, if he was having the type of relationship that I believe, he was having with Celeste. I mean, she basically called him out on it during the live stream, saying that he AR'd kids. That, he didn't like women. Kobayashi says, have you seen the recent picture of her backstage when David was performing? Is it real or AI? I don't know. I don't know if it's real or AI. I wish I knew. Nanny says, believe that Neo. I don't know. I just want to urge caution on that. I haven't found any evidence to support that. It doesn't mean they did or didn't. But I don't know. So I just want to, sometimes people who are in the public eye will kind of give a androgynous kind of look to stuff because they want to attract young males as well as young females, if you understand, get my drift on that. I hope that makes sense. And for those of you that are, I just want to say thank you. What is the significance of the crows? Let me pull that up for you. It has several different significances, but I do think it's significant that he posted that. The significance of a crow is multifaceted. It can often represent, quote, a duality of death and transformation. They're highly intelligent birds known for their problem solving skills, so they can also be associated with wisdom and knowledge, but they're also associated with transformation and rebirth. And so this was posted on Celeste's birthday. Like their raven cousins, crows are often linked to transformation, change, and the cyclical nature of life, where one ending leads to a new beginning. They're also associated with death, decay, and bad luck. Um, so they have different omens and associations, but those are some of them. And feel free to do your own research on that. So thank you for your great question. Thank you for the Purple Hearts for Celeste cabling. Nanny says, well, someone had to get her in the trunk of the Tesla so that person could be picked up, questioned, and given a light. Exactly. The crow, it is weird. And for those of you like, what is she talking about? I know this is a song. I get the pro David accounts coming in to tell me that it's a song. I get it. I understand what you're saying, but it's also significant that he posted this, chased a crow looking at trees wearing a Hello Kitty shirt. Remember, he had a song unreleased named Celeste, titled Celeste. This was posted on Celeste's birthday, and it was liked by Neo and other people. So I do think the fact that he posted this on her birthday is significant. I think everything that he did, this was the other post that he made, same day, wearing the Hello Kitty shirt, also posted on her birthday. I do think it's significant. And, the song is I Chased a Crow Looking at Trees. I think that everything he did had significance. I don't think that this was a coincidence either. I do want to say thank you. I realize that I don't have a ton of new information to share with you. But I did want to share with you what we know so far. And I also wanted to share with you what I thought the delays might be. So please consider giving this a thumbs up. Please consider dropping some purple hearts for Celeste. And Jenny says, I believe his songs are metaphors. Yeah, I think there is a lot of significance with what he does. So thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. If you haven't subscribed, it's free, and it lets me know you would like me to continue covering this case. Please subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.